Immigration is a major topic in French public debate. It often appears on the news and is discussed a lot by politicians. Frequently, the conversation is framed around the idea of a crisis or an uncontrolled invasion. We hear terms like submersion, being overwhelmed, or unprecedented wave, which create a sense of urgency and fear. This narrative suggests that France is facing a problem of a scale it has never seen before. This way of talking about immigration aims to make people feel that their country, their culture, and their security are under threat from an overwhelming influx of foreigners, turning a complex social phenomenon into a simple, scary story. This alarmist tone is not accidental. It is often a deliberate strategy used in political discourse. By presenting immigration as the primary cause of various national problems, from unemployment to insecurity, some political leaders can deflect attention from other complex issues. They create a simple narrative with a clear other to blame, which can be very effective in mobilizing voters. This simplification, however, ignores the nuanced realities of why people migrate and what their actual impact is on the country. It transforms a human issue involving real people with diverse stories into a political tool, which unfortunately prevents a calm and rational discussion about the topic. This intense focus on a supposed immigration problem is what some observers call le grand déni, or the great denial. But the denial isn't about the existence of immigration itself. Instead, it's about denying its historical normality and its actual, quantifiable scale. The narrative of an unprecedented crisis denies the fact that France has been a country of immigration for centuries. It also denies the objective data that shows France is not, in fact, being uniquely overwhelmed compared to its European neighbors. This denial therefore serves to amplify fear by erasing historical context and statistical reality, making the current situation seem exceptional and frightening when it is not. The constant repetition of this crisis narrative has a real impact on public perception. It can lead to increased social tensions and a polarized society. When people are constantly told that immigrants are a threat, it fosters mistrust and division. It makes it difficult to have a constructive conversation about how to manage immigration in a way that is both humane and effective for the country. The challenge, then, is to move beyond this panicked discourse and look at the facts. We need to understand the real numbers, the true reasons for migration, and the long history of immigration in France to form a more accurate and balanced view. One of the most common tools used to create fear is the exaggeration of numbers. We often hear claims that suggest France is taking in more immigrants than any other country. However, when we look at the official data from sources like INSEE, France's National Statistics Institute, or Eurostat, a different picture emerges. As of today, June 8, 2025, about 1/10 of the French population is composed of immigrants, which means people born abroad with foreign nationality who now live in France. This figure is significant, but it is far from being the highest in Europe. It is a number that has grown steadily, not explosively. Let's compare this with other European nations to get a clearer perspective. Countries like Germany, Sweden, or Austria have higher proportions of immigrants in their populations. For instance, in Germany, the figure is closer to 15%. This comparison is not meant to minimize the situation in France, but to contextualize it properly. It shows that the idea of France being uniquely submerged is a political exaggeration, not a statistical fact. The numbers reveal that France is within the European average, facing similar demographic trends as its neighbors, rather than experiencing an isolated and out-of-control crisis as some narratives suggest. Furthermore, it is crucial to understand the history of these numbers. Immigration to France is not a new phenomenon that suddenly appeared in the 21st century. The country has experienced significant waves of immigration for over a century, coming from different parts of Europe like Poland, Italy, Spain, and Portugal, especially after the World Wars, to help with reconstruction and to fill labor shortages. These earlier waves have since integrated and become an integral part of French society. Understanding this long history helps to normalize the current situation and shows that France has always been a country shaped by successive arrivals of new populations. So, why does the myth of a numerical invasion persist? It is because raw numbers, taken out of context, can be manipulated to create a powerful emotional impact. A figure like 7 million immigrants sounds enormous on its own, but when you explain that this represents about 1/10 of the total population, and that this share has been built up over many decades, the sense of immediate crisis fades. By focusing on data and context, we can deconstruct the alarmist rhetoric. This allows us to see immigration not as an overwhelming flood, but as a long-term, manageable demographic trend that is part of France's identity. To have a meaningful conversation about immigration, we must first understand why people decide to leave their home countries and come to France. The motivations are diverse and rarely simple. A primary reason is economic. Many people come to France to work or to find better professional opportunities than are available at home. Another major driver is education. France attracts thousands of international students every year who come to study in its universities and schools, contributing to the country's academic and scientific prestige. These are not people fleeing, but people moving towards an opportunity for a better future. Another significant category of arrivals is linked to family reasons. This is known as regroupement familial or family reunification, which allows people legally residing in France to bring their close family members to live with them. This is a fundamental right recognized in many countries. Finally, a crucial, though smaller portion of arrivals consists of asylum seekers. These are individuals fleeing war, persecution, or natural disasters in their home country. They are not migrating by choice but out of necessity, seeking safety and protection under international law. These diverse reasons show that immigration is not a monolithic flow, but a collection of individual stories and projects. Faced with these migration flows, a common political response has been to implement stricter laws. Over the past decades, France has passed numerous immigration laws, each one often aiming to be tougher than the last. These laws typically focus on making it harder to obtain visas, tightening border controls, and restricting access to residency permits. The underlying belief is that a more restrictive legal framework will deter people from coming. However, experience has shown that these policies have a limited impact on the overall numbers. They do not stop immigration, they often just make the journeys more dangerous and push people into irregular situations. The reason these strict laws often fail is that they do not address the root causes of migration. A person fleeing a war or extreme poverty will not be stopped by a complicated visa application process. They will find other ways to come, often taking great risks by relying on smugglers. This creates a cycle where stricter laws lead to more illegal immigration, which in turn is used by some politicians to call for even stricter laws. This approach fails to solve the problem and instead creates immense human suffering and fuels the underground economy of illegal border crossings without actually controlling the demographic trends. The debate on immigration in France is often stuck between two opposing and unrealistic positions. On one side, there is the great denial of fear, which paints immigration as an existential threat and calls for closed borders, an impossible goal in a globalized world. On the other side, some advocate for a total opening of borders without any regulation, which fails to acknowledge the real challenges that integration can pose for public services and social cohesion. Neither of these extreme views offers a viable solution. A realistic approach must navigate the space between these two poles, acknowledging both the benefits and the challenges of immigration. A pragmatic and humane policy would start by accepting reality. Immigration is a structural phenomenon that cannot be stopped, only managed. Therefore, instead of focusing solely on control and restriction, the focus should shift towards effective integration. This means investing in language courses, professional training programs, and systems that help newcomers find work and participate in society. It also means ensuring that public services in areas with high immigrant populations, like schools and healthcare, are adequately funded to meet the needs of all residents, both new and old. This is not about being naive, but about being practical. This balanced approach also requires clear, stable, and fair rules. The constant changing of laws creates uncertainty for both immigrants and the administration that manages them. A coherent policy would define legal pathways for migration based on the country's economic and demographic needs, while also upholding its international obligations to protect refugees. This provides predictability and allows for better planning. By managing immigration proactively rather than reacting with fear, France can better control the process and ensure that it benefits both the immigrants and the host society, turning a perceived problem into an opportunity for growth. Ultimately, it is essential to remember that immigration is not an anomaly in French history. It is a fundamental part of it. From the Italians and Poles who rebuilt the country after the wars, to the artists, scientists, and entrepreneurs from around the world who contribute to its dynamism today, immigrants have always shaped France. Recognizing this historical truth is the first step toward diffusing the current tensions. Immigration is not a threat to French identity. It is one of the many streams that have formed it. The challenge is not to stop it, but to manage it with intelligence, fairness, and a clear-eyed view of reality.